Yeah.
What was the opposition in Germany that was faced, and how did they deal with it?
Yeah, so part of the opposition, basically in Germany, the energy revolution has widespread support because I think they say 70 to 80% of the country is on board with this goal of transitioning to renewables. But when it comes to some of the specific concerns are obviously sometimes in the details, and the transmission line, the long distance high voltage transmission line that they want to build from north to south is part of what there's been a lot of opposition to. And that's partly because it has to go through people's land, you know, big structures with high voltage lines, power lines above that people would prefer not to see, so, or have near them. So that's been the biggest part from what I've read about the opposition. And they haven't gotten over it yet. I mean, it's still being negotiated, and so there's still problems with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Why is Germany so quick to deviate from nuclear power?
Can you repeat?
Yeah, why is Germany so quick to deviate from nuclear power?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Richard may even know more about this, but Germany has had a long history of concern about nuclear from the 70s and 80s, and I think part of it, I mean, Germany was closer to Chernobyl than obviously the United States was. There's, you know, there's been deep concern, social concern about nuclear for a long time in Germany. And the Fukushima accident really kind of triggered or kind of put over the edge a commitment that was already kind of growing in terms of let's reduce our nuclear dependence, and really had some political clout to kind of really make that commitment stronger. So yeah, I don't know all the details of why, but there's definitely a strong cultural and social opposition there.
Yes. What are like the fossil fuel companies' argument for sticking with fossil fuels? Like, I don't see how anyone can.
Well, the fossil fuel companies make money when we use fossil fuels, right? So their whole business model, their whole reason for being, the reason they get up in the morning and do what they do is to sell fossil fuels. And fossil fuels, I mean, the arguments are that fossil fuels have enabled us to do amazing things in the past 50 years, right? That we would never, or 100 years, that we would never have been able to do if we weren't using the fossil fuels, right? We use the energy from fossil fuels for so many things that we would never be able to do if we didn't have those. So the fossil fuel companies have, everyone, I mean, if you look at the political discourse, many political leaders, not all, but many talk about a transition, right? We need a transition to clean energy. Often it's called clean energy. And that gets into the cleaner energy versus, you know, when there's a lot of investment in the United States in carbon capture and storage, which is a way to maintain using coal, but making it less, capturing the CO2 and not putting that into the atmosphere. So that's cleaner coal, right? Or natural gas as a cleaner substitute to coal for electricity generation. So there's a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of money to be made, and the current system is very entrenched. So it's hard to move away from that, even though people can see the writing on the wall that eventually we have to move away from it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say another argument is jobs, and that hits close to home for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the jobs argument related to any change in any system can come up because when you see change, there's going to be some jobs lost, but other new jobs. And with the solar revolution that we're starting to see just in the past couple of years, there's been, in the United States, there's a lot of new solar and renewable energy jobs also emerging, but they're often in different places and different constituents than the coal miners or the fossil fuel industry jobs. So it's not really a substitute, right? It's complicated because geographic and other things. Yeah.
Right now, with regards to the smart grid, transporting energy right now is quite inefficient, as you said. It's being transported in conductive material that's in a sheet. Is there a new technology that's on the verge that might make it more efficient? I know, like something like fiber optics changed the telecommunications style.
So as far as I know, sorry, there are multiple improvements to efficiency in transportation and distribution of electricity, not just in the materials and the wires themselves, but also in monitoring and measuring, so we know how much is going where and when and how fast it's flowing and all of that. So yes, there are all kinds of innovations, so there are definitely big improvements in transmission and distribution that often go unnoticed, right? Because as electricity consumers, we don't really pay attention to that piece of it that much. Yes?
All right. What are some of the changes in technology and culture that would be most likely to influence people to choose renewable energy over fossil fuels, no matter what other factors are?
Well, that's kind of the million-dollar question, right? And that's what you guys are exploring this whole semester. I don't think there's one answer to that. I think there's lots of different answers. I think there's lots of different audiences, different people that have different needs and different priorities. And so there are a whole portfolio of different kinds of things that will encourage social and technological change in different places with different people. So I'm not going to, I guess, stand up for one specific kind of initiative, but I think that's kind of the breadth of what this course is all about in terms of thinking about what are all the different options for that. So sorry if it's kind of a cop-out to your question, but yeah.
Can you talk about carbon capture, or especially, I've never heard carbon capture in the same sentence as clean coal. So
Okay.
I'm curious as to
Yeah. So I'm actually giving a lecture in the School of Engineering next Tuesday, I think, at noon or 12:30, somewhere in there, about carbon capture and storage. You have heard about clean coal, right? So clean coal has often been used in political discourse as a way that we can still use coal, maintain the reliance we already have, but try to make it cleaner so that we don't, we can start to mitigate climate change and reduce their CO2 emissions. And so carbon capture and storage is this vision or set of technologies that has been envisioned. A full carbon capture and storage coal-fired power plant has not yet been built, but engineers, the pieces of the technology have been used for other things. And the idea is that we can burn coal, capture the CO2, and inject it underground instead of putting it in the atmosphere. And that is essentially when politicians, or if you've ever heard clean coal, that's what they're talking about most of the time. There's also other efficiencies in coal plants that could also be clumped into kind of clean coal. But there's been a pushback with that phrase, clean coal, from a lot of environmental groups are saying there's no such thing as clean coal. And so then people have been using cleaner coal or kind of moved away from that term in general. It's not used as much now as it was 4 or 5 years ago. But that technology, my take on that technology, carbon capture and storage, is that it has made us, or the countries that use a lot of coal who have been investing in carbon capture and storage technology, given kind of a false sense of security that we'll figure out a technological fix and we can still use coal. If you look at, I mean, there's been analysis, even with economic analysis, of the costs of burning coal. And basically, society-wide, if you add up all the costs and benefits, the costs of burning coal are higher than the benefits because of there's all kinds of health implications and lots of bad things associated with coal. Yeah.
Just one thing, as Jenny said, we really do encourage you guys to get out and do stuff, experience whatever you like related to energy, the field trips, and also get involved. And I'm just going to take 1 minute here, give Dylan Zwicky, come out here for a sec. Dylan is the clean energy whatever What's your title?
Clean Energy Associate.
Clean Energy Associate, the state's largest environmental group, VPIRG. VPIRG is very involved in a lot of these debates, and wind debate on nuclear power. And they have a meeting coming up, and you want to say a word and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. First, quickly, how many of you have heard of VPIRG? Great. So we are, as Richard said, the state's largest public interest advocacy group. We work on a wide range of different issues, everything from healthcare, consumer protection, and also energy. So at VPIRG, we believe strongly that so long as we use energy, we have a responsibility to produce it locally and cleanly. So that means that we are on the forefront of the wind debate here in Vermont, working to stop dirty, dangerous sources of energy, and also working to make sure that it's not more difficult to build cleaner sources here in Vermont. So on all of these issues, we work to bring the voice of the public, of students and citizens across the state, into the political process. So we, as part of that, sort of the PIRG movement got their start, and VPIRG got its start on the UVM campus about 40 years ago. Students gave us the power to become the powerful organization that we are today. So we're actually trying to build our presence on campus this year and working to engage students and give you guys opportunities to get involved in all of our campaigns on campus here. So we're having a kickoff event tomorrow in Waterman 413, give sort of an opportunity to learn more about ways to get involved with energy issues and other social and environmental campaigns on campus that will impact sort of the state's energy choices. So Waterman 413, 6 to 8 tomorrow. There'll be free food and a couple of other groups there presenting as well. And also Keisha Ram, who's a state representative in Montpelier and a UVM alum, will be talking about her experience organizing and being an activist on the UVM campus and how that's sort of projected her to where she is today. Any questions?
It's also free food.
Free food.
Thank you, Dylan. We'll write it up and we'll pass it around on the blackboard.
Walt's
Yeah,
gonna pass
we
around
pass out some
stuff.
handouts. If you guys each row just want to take a few of these and just pass them down or pass them back, that'd be great.
All right, one last big picture question for Jenny. Does anyone want to bring us all home? Oh, the pressure, the pressure, the pressure.
Just to kind of address more the social side of Germany's efforts, do you know if they have any kind of like early environmental education that they do for students or younger students more than like middle school and high school?
I actually don't know the details of their educational efforts in schools. I do know they have a strong component of nationally funded kind of social science research and social dimension of the whole program. But that's an interesting question to think about how that's integrated into the schools and the curriculum. Yeah.
We almost have to stop. What?
I was going to ask, there's been a lot of talk about Germany, and I have heard that Germany has increased their renewable energy usage quite a lot, but there's the actual carbon output in Germany that hasn't changed.
Great, so this is actually a really good way to end, because you remember the slide I put up with the simple substitution with horses and cars at the beginning? It looked like a simple substitution. What we're seeing in Germany is actually an example of it's not simple at all, right, when you try to do this transition. What's happened in Germany has actually, as they've taken nuclear power plants offline, they've actually started burning more coal to make up for that what they've lost from the nuclear, because they don't yet have enough renewables. So there's an interim blip of actually increased in carbon dioxide, because coal emits more carbon dioxide than nuclear, which doesn't really emit carbon dioxide. So, so you're right. That's a great question, and that's an example of how messy transitions are. Transitions are not a simple, okay, we'll just switch this and everything else is fine, and then we'll keep doing what we've been doing. They're very complicated, and it's system-wide change. You can change one part of the system and start making progress, but it can lead to some dimensions actually going backward before you can go forward. So great question, and hopefully you can keep that in mind as you continue to explore energy transitions in Vermont and beyond the rest of the semester.